Andrew Bishago is a Cambridge University educated researcher and lawyer. He claims he was part of a program called Project Pegasus, a program that conducted experiments in teleportation.
It was being carried out as a black project of the CIA.
Bishago led us to a building near the Los Angeles airport, where he said the experiments took place.
It's this building right here. There's been a major facelift to the building.
I must say, this is not what I was expecting. So the big picture here...
The United States government has had operational teleportation capability in which somebody can literally jump through a tunnel in the time-space continuum uninjured, well, since 1967-68.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how do you know this?
I took 2 trips to Mars.
Coming up, is teleportation actually possible?
Teleportation does not violate the laws of physics.
Then, the investigators find the shocking evidence that blows the Mars cover-up wide open.
I don't think I'd ever forget that day.
And later, a dangerous face-off with Black Ops security.
Hey, camera low!
I must say, this is not what I was expecting. Kerry and I were face to face with a man who claimed to have been sent to Mars, but he didn't get there the way we'd expected.
I was 19, I was at UCLA. They put a CIA officer sort of in my life as a contact officer. I was asked if I wanted to go to Mars. I said, no, I don't want to go to Mars. And I finally said to him, why is it essential that I go? And he said, because the survival of the human race depends on it.
What is the CIA got to do with interplanetary travel? I mean, why is the CIA involved with this at all?
It was initiated under the United States Navy, ultimately organized around the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. But the thrust of it was gathering intelligence for the Central Intelligence Agency. We were actually hiding teleportation from Soviet spies in one of our own defense labs during these years.
Do you know if the Russians have this technology?
I know that they were working on it. I know that we were several years ahead of them.
Interesting.
So maybe we weren't the only people teleporting to Mars. I asked him what was actually involved in getting there.
We would jump from a office building, a CIA facility in El Segundo, California, to an underground location on Mars. We went up to the 8th floor. Lights began flashing. The box that kind of morphed and crunched into a cylinder, and I could see this swirling pattern. The door opened in an underground base on Mars. It looked like perhaps an underground cavern that the Martians had been using that we had sort of built an infrastructure inside of. I encountered 3 humans from Earth during the first trip, and then in the second trip, we walked out on the surface and walked for about a half a mile and encountered one of the personnel from the CIA.
But you're saying you walked out on the surface, so the surface air is breathable.
Well, on the first trip, I walked out wearing my respiration equipment. But when I took my helmet off, it was somewhat difficult to breathe, but I certainly didn't begin hyperventilating. I was able to breathe normally on the surface.
Was the sky blue?
Yes, the sky on Mars is a pale baby blue. And the terrain isn't all rust red. I mean, it's predominantly rust red. I think the area on Earth that comes closest to what Mars looks like would probably be Sedona, Arizona.
Bishago's description of Mars seemed credible, but his method of getting there? That was harder to wrap our minds around. If, say, you're teleporting from here to Mars, you've got a dynamic system that's moving around the solar system. Why do you pop out of Mars and nowhere else?
I'm a lawyer and a writer, not a technologist. The science of that, I can't answer that. But clearly some form of hyperdimensional physics was involved because of the fact that it did do that.
Since Andy couldn't explain the physics to us, we decided to speak to someone who could. Sean Carroll is a theoretical physicist, author, and university lecturer. He specializes in the Big Bang, dark energy, and extra dimensions. We reached out to him for some answers.
Well, we're investigative journalists, and we're investigating hyperdimensional physics.
Okay. Now, one of the things that happens is that we have people coming to us, sort of a little bit off record. Some people would call them whistleblowers. And we have heard from multiple witnesses that macro-scale teleportation is an established technology. And is this plausible?
Mm-hmm. It may be plausible that someday we can do something resembling what you would call teleportation.
Is there investigation into teleportation at this time?
Sure, people are discussing something that we call teleportation. That's sort of the atom-by-atom level, yes.
But your point is that that's not transferable to the macro level. Is this
certainly as a practical matter it's not, but even as a matter...
Sean Carroll said one form of teleportation on the micro level was taking place now. But that couldn't explain teleportation on the macro level, like sending a human being to Mars. So you're saying that Scotty can't beam us up to us yet, right?
Maybe someday. Physicists always stress the difference between things that we don't know how to do and things that violate the laws of physics as we understand them. And teleportation does not violate the laws of physics. It's what physicists call an engineering problem, if only we could learn how to do it.
Sean Carroll had confirmed that teleportation was theoretically possible. I had one last question to ask him, one that might explain how it could be happening now. What if there was an extra dimension beyond the usual four of space and time? Imagine that this concrete pathway here, this is four-dimensional space-time which we live in every day. If there was a fifth-dimensional wraparound, some people call it hyperspace, some people call it subspace, what mathematically would prevent stepping into that space, moving in that space, which doesn't take time because time's over here, and then reappearing in a different location in the world line?
What we know is mathematically we can easily create scenarios just like that. But to do anything like move a macroscopic person into an extra dimension would require far more energy and far more technological capability than we have now or will have for the next couple centuries at least.
It would take us several centuries to develop this technology on our own. But what if we had help? What if we had a prototype to work from? One that had come from another planet.
Coming up, Bill and Carrie are on the verge of a major discovery.
There's several vehicles right here all of a sudden. Oh my God.
But will they make it past the Black Ops forces?
They're watching what we're doing. These guys are tracking us every inch of the way. Carrie and I have been investigating unexplained activities on Mars. We decided to talk to the highest level source we could find, Bob Dean. Only he could help us put the pieces of this puzzle together.
We really need your input.
Robert Dean is the ultimate government black ops insider, a former Army Command Sergeant Major. He obtained NATO's highest security level, Cosmic Top Secret, when he worked on a deep cover investigation into the potential threat of UFOs. We told him we'd been investigating evidence of strange activities on Mars.
We are getting a lot of information that there is a secret space program. There are shipments going to Mars, that there is a constant flow of even humans going to Mars, that there are underground bases and they have been there for quite some time. I mean, what is it you know about Mars, and can you confirm or deny the things that I'm telling you right now?
There has been an extraterrestrial presence on Mars for 100,000 years, for God's sake.
Why do you want to tell us this?
It's got to be brought out. The mass of people out there need to know what this is all about. There is a major ongoing facility on Mars right now.
What can you tell us about that?
There's a space facility which Mariner 9 photographed on the equator years and years ago, which NASA released accidentally, but then they denied they ever took the picture. I think it's a spaceport. I think probably it's where that gigantic triangular objects were photographed.
Gigantic triangular craft. Exactly what Gordon Lavelle had shown us.
We were told it's a craft that is possibly flying to Mars from a base in Utah.
Yes, underground base.
Interesting.
We go to Mars regularly. We go to the moon regularly.
How is that possible?
We're dealing with major extraterrestrial intelligence. We have science that we use every day that's over 100 years beyond what establishment science has any idea about.
Bob Dean was saying these spacecraft were using alien technology. Could that also explain teleportation?
Because we've been talking to Andy Bishago. Do you know who he is?
He was being teleported to Mars.
Yes.
Why keep it secret?
The technology, there is no word to describe the value of the technology. We have had anti-gravity and we have had zero-point energy for over 40 years. Infinite energy forever for nothing. But it's not to be shared, it's not to be even admitted. But the average guy out there who's paying for his air conditioning and buying gas for his old clunker does not have any idea.
Bob Dean was talking about the ultimate secret war, a race to control extraterrestrial technology, a resource so valuable that many of the world's most powerful forces are battling to control it.
Have you ever really looked at the evidence? No. There's a shadow government. It has its own army, its own air force, its own navy that is totally separate and beyond everything that goes on in Washington. They're sitting on the technology. You understand?
Yeah.
That's why I think you're playing with dynamite here.